Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Quast. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Swift Transportation. Joining me today on video via remote is Jim Fitzsimmons, who's the Executive Vice President of Operations of our line haul dry van operations. We wanted to take a moment just to address you today and speak about some things relative to COVID-19, things that we're doing here at Swift, and things that are taking place. Wanted to point out that today's date is April the 3rd. As we all know, these things change rather rapidly. So by the time you watch this video, things may have changed again. But as of today, these are the things that we know. We also remind all of us to continue to follow closely the CDC guidelines and look for direction and instruction from local authorities as we all work to remain safe and to remain healthy. With that, I wanted to start with some questions. Now, all of the questions that we're going to be addressing today have come to us from primarily from our drivers through various channels with our COVID-19 email address, voice your choice, and other avenues. So we hope that we're addressing concerns and questions that individuals may have, and that's our goal today. But please continue to submit questions, and we'll continue to update here on a frequent basis. So let me dive into the first question. There was a question about as we're hiring new drivers and bringing new drivers into our company and the onboarding process and how we're doing that. When you think about the traditional setting, we have people in a classroom and large groups. We have modified that process today. We've created more online tools for people to use. So today, for example, an experienced driver, if he or she wanted to do a physical and drug screen before they came to work for us, before they started DQP, and do some online materials, cover some things before they start a driver qualification process, they could literally come into one of our buildings on a Monday morning, for example, do a few more things, and providing the drug screen results had already come back, they could be working as early as that same day. In other cases, for people who are not able to do that or want to just come and do more of the traditional path, we make sure that we have physical distancing. We're making sure that we are rotating people and adjusting class sizes as necessary to accommodate that. So we're trying to be very, very careful there. Another concern related to that has been with our mentors and those who might be considering becoming a mentor. Let me just say that this role of mentor is as critical today as it ever has been, as there has been increased interest in trucking because of the good work that all of our drivers and the drivers in the industry have been doing. So for our mentors, we want you to recognize that we are taking specific steps to make sure that we are screening people who are coming to join us to train as a student. So all of our recruiters are armed with specific questions to ask, questions that similar to what CDC guidelines are relative to whether they are ill, whether they've been around somebody who's ill or been exposed to COVID-19, and about where they traveled, if they've been to countries that have been impacted by this. And based on that screen, if everything is affirmative, then or they're cleared, in other words, then we bring them in. And then when they come in, they go through a physical. Part of the physical is checking temperature. And so we check body temperature, make sure there's no fever and those kind of things, and that's already built into the process. We also have asked our clinics, our medical professionals who do the physicals for us to help us to screen for anybody who might be ill. And then, of course, we're observing throughout the DQP process for anybody who might be ill. Those who are going through our academies, we're able to observe for a longer time. And so we're taking extra precautions now to make sure that the people that we're bringing in are very healthy, and that we're able to continue to onboard people who are healthy and to minimize the risk as much as possible. So with that, Jim, we'll turn it over to you maybe for the next question.
Thanks, Kevin. So we had some more questions around the supply locations. So we'll post a link along with this video of the locations that we have the supplies. One specifically was, are we adding New York to the list? And we are. And so there's actually a shipment that was packed up yesterday out of the Pennsylvania terminal. That's being shipped to Syracuse, New York today. So by the end of today, and like Kevin said, it's Friday, April 3rd. By the end of today, the Syracuse office will have some of those provisions. Another question came up, and we've hit this a few times. So if somebody's running into an issue, please escalate that. You could forward that problem to the COVID email. But these provisions are for all lines of business drivers. So regardless if you're line haul, dedicated, intermodal, reefer, doesn't matter, flatbed, everyone's included, and they're for all 4 companies. So you got Swift, Knight, Barnum, Abilene. All 4 companies are welcome to these provisions. One thing we would ask on that is keep in mind we're trying to make these last, and so if you've got provisions a day or 2 ago, we would ask that you pass until you need more. So just try to take what you need, and that way we're going to have enough for everyone. Kevin, turn it back to you for the Laredo.
Thank you, Jim. I wanted to talk just for a moment about wearing of masks and PPE, protective personal equipment. Early on with COVID-19, the CDC was recommending that masks only be worn by those who are ill or for those who might be caring for somebody who is ill. There's been a recent shift in that and some discussion at least about maybe a broader use of masks, people wearing masks. And so we have a supply of masks that are starting to arrive today. Jim will speak some more about that. Laredo, Texas, for example, in that city, the city has created an ordinance that anybody who's outdoors needs to be wearing a face mask or something to cover their nose and mouth. It could be even a bandana or some kind of cloth material. It doesn't have to be one of the surgical or medical type of masks that we've seen. And so we're making sure everybody's aware of that. In the Laredo example, there's a risk of a fine, of a penalty up to $1,000 if you're caught outside without something to cover your nose and mouth. So if you're heading to that area, please be careful. But we are bringing in supplies of these, and maybe Jim, you can comment a little bit more about that.
Yep. So on the mask specifically, we actually have 60,000 masks that we've ordered. A large amount of those hit Phoenix yesterday, and those are being now distributed out to all terminals. And so within the next few days, every terminal should have masks. Every terminal already has gloves. So I talked about that earlier in the week. So if you want to get gloves or a mask, and I realize not everyone will, but if you want those, just ask for them. And so the shop is who has the gloves, and I believe they're going to have the mask as well, because that's where they're being shipped to, is from the Phoenix shop to all the other shop locations. And then in regards to the hand sanitizer, we've hit on this a few times. It's been a little slower than we liked, but that product is being shipped out of Monterrey, Mexico, and it's going to be distributed to all facilities. So all Swift, Knight, Barnum, Abilene, everyone should have that by, probably starting Sunday, Monday, and then into next week. As the product comes off the assembly line, they're going to be boxing it up and shipping it directly from Monterrey, Mexico. So we're excited to get our hands on that stuff. Toilet paper has been a little harder to get, but we finally, have a load secured. It's going to be delivered to Phoenix. We don't have an ETA yet of when that will be here. And then we were able to buy 2, partial loads. I think it was probably a couple of pallets each in Atlanta and Phoenix. And so we'll have toilet paper at those facilities. We'll start passing that out. And then when the full truckload hits Phoenix, that'll be sent out again to most likely, 15 to 20 terminals for us to distribute that to everyone. There's been a lot of questions around, cleaning supplies when it comes to the disinfectant wipes, the sprays, that type of product. Here's what I would tell you on that. That product is still basically impossible to get. And so even with our connections with going directly to vendors or manufacturers that make this product, the medical community is what's coming first. And so that being said, we haven't had any success getting the medical community filled up where they need it so that we could get our hands on it. But we're working that. We're working through numerous avenues. We've got numerous salespeople working that initiative. And so our goal is to try to get our hands on that type of disinfectant product. But so far we've had just very limited success where we've had some coming through OS&D or that type. But just know we're working on it. And I think that's it, Kevin. Turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And I appreciate you emphasizing those supplies are for Swift, Knight, Barnum, and Abilene Motor Express drivers, as we're trying to make sure that we're taking care of everybody under the KNX umbrella right now. Now, I want to address for a moment the freight environment. There was a question about that. When you think about what we've experienced so far this year in 2020, we came into a year for Alpha 19, which wasn't as strong as 2018, and we saw some freight that was a little bit soft earlier in the year, and then we had this COVID issue hit, and things just, you know, turned upside down overnight, and we saw this massive demand in consumer product goods and groceries and those kind of areas, and we started to see a tail off and a fall off of demand in auto and in other type of retail, clothing and furniture and some of those kind of things, as many companies were asked or required to shut their stores, or in many cases even chose of their own accord to shut stores. And so we're still seeing that. In other words, the demand for consumer product goods / groceries are remaining strong, but it appears, based on what we're seeing from a load count perspective, that has peaked. Still stronger than before, but it has peaked. And then we haven't seen the uptick, the return of demand in the automotive and the general retail segment. Imports are starting to come, but they're not, as we're seeing, you know, some visibility from steamship lines and some customers. There will be some demand there, but maybe not as strong as it has been in the past. Now we think that, so what that's going to translate to us, or to mean for us, is that April and maybe early May could be a little more difficult time, as we're seeing demand in aggregate taper off a little bit. So we're going to have to really be focused on, you know, on making sure we're doing a good job on customer service, taking care of customers, and hey, we are pushing maybe as hard as I've ever seen us in booking loads, working with customers. We're trying to create opportunities for even short-term opportunities with customers, and working through from a rate perspective and some and trying to make sure that we have good solutions for our customers, to make sure that we have freight to keep our trucks moving during this difficult time. And so we're going to work through that the best we can and make sure we're supporting our drivers, and we'll certainly keep you posted as things develop. Though now the silver lining from this is that many of these kind of general retailers, if you will, are relatively optimistic that once this thing passes, assuming that this is a, you know, late April through mid-May kind of time frame, when we start to see it wane and start to see things start to return back to somewhat of a normal cadence, or start trending that way, that they're optimistic that demand will pick up and even be stronger. So if it plays out that way, then we should see, you know, a much stronger demand, you know, late May, June timeframe. Now, you know, it depends on what happens with the virus and how long it extends, and what happens with cases and how those things work. So no guarantees for any of us, obviously, with that, but we're certainly taking steps now. So we appreciate everybody's patience. We appreciate your focus on safety, appreciate your focus on service to our customers, and hey, those are the most important things that we can do. Let's make sure that we take care of business every single day. We'll get through this time period, and hey, we're going to come out of this this environment in really good shape, and we're going to be fine. So appreciate your focus on the important things here as we work through it. Jim, back to you.
All right. Next question is around truck and facility cleaning process. And that process is very similar at all locations in regards to how we clean the facilities, and as well as how we clean the trucks when we go between drivers. So if one driver leaves the company, we've got what is called the B2G process. That process looks very similar. The key here is that all touch points are disinfected, and that goes for whether it's an office or a tractor. It's the same. It's a similar process where the touch points are being disinfected. And I tell you, at the terminals, that's happening daily, where we have all touch points being disinfected, and we've stepped up the cleaning process on the facilities and the tractors as a result of this virus. And so, hit on that. One thing I wanted to add is if you guys have questions, I would recommend the CDC website. So that website is cdc.gov. And we've said many times we're not going to try to act like doctors or pretend we know what we're talking about here, but that website is just the facts, and you can learn a lot from reading through the stats on COVID-19 there. Another question we had was in regards to if a driver is quarantined, can they do the quarantine in the truck? And so when it comes to that, we want to find the best option. So if the best option is for somebody to quarantine in the truck, but by all means, we will do that. It's probably not going to be the most comfortable place to quarantine. But we've had drivers that are doing self-quarantines. We've had some doing it at home. We've had some in hotels. We've had some doing it in our tractors. And so by all means, whether you live in the truck, you don't live in the truck, if it's a better spot for you to quarantine, one driver had some concerns that if he was to self-quarantine, he wouldn't want to do that at home, therefore possibly opening up the chance of his family picking it up if he was positive. And so that would be an example where we would be okay with the driver using our truck to self-quarantine. And then lastly, I just wanted to thank everyone again for the great job. I know this is a difficult time, but I feel everyone's doing a very good job of holding this thing together and keeping the freight moving. And more importantly is keeping the product coming to the stores, keeping the shelves as full as they can be, because that's what keeps the panic from happening across America. When people walk into stores and the shelves are empty, it's just a ripple effect that goes like crazy. So thanks for all you guys are doing.
Jim, I appreciate that. Appreciate your comments, and I'll just end by adding the same comments, expressing appreciation to all of our drivers and all of our team members. I don't know if maybe our drivers really understand fully, but we have many people who are working from home, which creates some challenges. Moms and dads who have to take care of kids and try to work because the schools are out, and hey, I know we all are dealing with that, but we appreciate everybody and appreciate the good work that you're doing, the focus on on keeping this business on track as we're working to resolve these issues. I want to emphasize that there's nothing more important than the safety and well-being of our employees, all of our employees, whether you work in an office, whether you drive a truck, whether you work in a shop. That is our first concern, and this thing just continues to change. And so we have lots of people, and at the very highest levels of our company, who are focused every single day on what's changing, on what we need to do, and the steps that we're taking, and we're really focused there. I also appreciate the fact that this, that for all the challenges, we see examples that come across all the time of increased humanity, if you will, as people are reaching out to serve others in ways of kindness and of sharing and of caring about other people, and I hope that we all will continue to do that and to help each other out as we work through this very difficult time. And hey, it will pass, and it's challenging right now. It's going to be challenging here for a bit, but it will pass, and we're going to come out of this thing strong. For all of us as employees of Knight-Swift Holdings, KNX. We're fortunate to work for a company that is very financially sound, very little debt, very purposefully managed from that perspective. And hey, we're going to weather this storm just fine, and we're going to come out of it in good shape. And what that's going to mean for all of us is constancy in our jobs, constancy in our employment, and in our income. And hey, we're committed to make that happen for all of us and to work through this the very best that we can. So appreciate all of you, and keep up the good work, and we'll try to keep you updated. Have a great day.